We normally talk about Tesla on this channel because that's kind of the EV brand that I think is leading the industry right now, but what Ford is going to unveil on May 19th around 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 9:30 Eastern, this is actually a pretty important part for the EV market. It's not just the same as another pickup truck that's all electric getting unveiled, which seems to become very, very common, trying to capitalize a lot on the hype of the Cybertruck, and Ford has actually been teasing an all-electric F-150 for a while. They've had a prototype unit that they've demoed moving like 1,000,000 pounds of trains down a railway, but without any really difference in design to the rest of the F-150 lineup. But what truly separates Ford from any other company announcing an electric pickup truck is this is the top seller of pickup trucks in America. Obviously, United States buys more pickup trucks than anyone, so the fact that Ford is the company selling the best-selling pickup trucks in the biggest pickup truck market in the world, them announcing that this is going to be an all-electric, battery EV does say a lot for the industry. It gives a lot of confidence to the fact that this is a market that they see going electric and not a hydrogen pickup truck, not a hybrid pickup truck, but a true electric through and through unveiling. It says a lot for the future of the pickup truck market, and I think that Ford is going to be compared directly, of course, against the Tesla Cybertruck in so many ways. So how the specs, the price point, and the design appeals to the common denominator is a pretty important factor. So that's the running thesis I'm trying to make in this video, is that what Ford unveils is going to have a lot of eyes looking at it, knowing that they've made some of the most successful pickup trucks in the world. How they're going to price it is very, very interesting to me. And while I'm anticipating that by the unveil images they've provided and the little teaser images we've seen so far, it's probably not going to aesthetically look that different from the rest of the lineup. I mean, I know it's become a very common thing in the EV world to just put a light bar on something because you want it to be futuristic and you want it to look modern. You got a big battery pack, you gotta have a big light bar across the front. I know, that's kind of the running design trend of the day, but for people who are too off-put by the Cybertruck's uniqueness and futuristic aesthetic, F-150, I think it probably makes sense for their target demographic to keep it kind of on par with other Ford pickup trucks of today and not make it look terribly different. But still, hopefully, with that light bar, you can make it a bit iconic so that it separates itself from other pickup trucks on the market. It doesn't just blend in with the rest of the F-150 lineup too well, but still, of course, have that iconic Ford look. Somewhat similar to how Ford unveiled the Mustang Mach-E, which obviously caused a whole lot of backlash and confusion and a lot of frustration from the Mustang fan base going, hey, this is not a Mustang. Why are you reusing this branding on a crossover? Ford is technically reusing the F-150 Lightning branding because they did have a line of F-150 called Lightning in the past, but it's not super iconic. It died out in the 90s, so I guess it makes sense for them to brand it as Lightning for electricity, electrons, and everything. It's not the worst name I could have thought of, and personally, I'm not in favor of adding E to more naming, which so many legacy automakers do already. We've already got F-150. Now you want to add another letter to that, E-150 or F-150 EV. Yeah, it wouldn't have been better in my opinion. Just calling it Ford's Lightning rolls off the tongue for me pretty well, so I'm fine with the naming scheme. What I'm most interested in is to see how they compare this thing to, of course, the rest of the EV market it's going to go up against. So I have to imagine the Lightning is probably still a few years away from mass production. This is just the unveiling point. The Ford CEO on Twitter said that they would unveil when mass production of it is going to begin at a later date, but that it would be mass produced in the United States. The unveiling also said to expect more production models to be shown in spring of 2022. I'm not sure if that means deliveries are going to be next year, but a lot of people seem to be assuming the volume production won't begin until 2023. But yeah, even by end of next year, we're gonna have Rivians on the road, Cybertrucks on the road, the all-electric Hummer is gonna be on the road, and outside of the Hummer, pretty much all the electric pickup trucks that have been unveiled are from startup companies, whether it be Lordstown, Rivian, or Tesla. None of them are really established automakers, and I think the Hummer is going for such a completely different market from all of them. Price pricing their vehicles well over 6 figures, kind of separates the Hummer into its own luxury pickup truck category that not even Rivian and the Cybertruck overlap with very much. So that's why I'm very curious to see how Ford prices this thing. I'm hoping they can get the entry-level model far below $60,000, because if Ford decides to make the F-150 Lightning a luxury pickup that's going to start at $80,000 and go well above $100,000 and have great specs and great towing capacity and all that, but they just kind of reserve it for the luxury demographic, then I don't think it's really going to be much Cybertruck competition. It's going to be catering to a completely different market, and the reason I bring up the Cybertruck so much is because that's the most heavily demanded vehicle of all time, just in the sheer number of reservations and the number of people that have their eyes on Tesla now that didn't before, because they want something that's good for work, they want something that's durable, they want a pickup truck through and through. And many pickup truck owners don't really care what the outside of the truck looks like, as long as they can have practicality and utility and affordability in their vehicle. But of course, there's also a huge side of the demographic that does care about the aesthetics and the outside look of their vehicle. So F-150, depending on how Ford is going to price this thing and how the range numbers are going to look, could very easily start bumping against the Rivian demographic of people that are looking for a more traditional style pickup truck that has decent range. And if the F-150 does start around $50,000 with a range around 250 to 300, I could see a lot of customers opting for that, especially the weekend warriors that aren't doing really long distance driving across the country, but absolutely are using their pickup truck to drive stuff and haul stuff around town. This pickup could be a tremendous threat to Rivian, and I don't really think it's going to be a huge threat to the Cybertruck, because that vehicle has struck such a chord with so many people, and I don't think Ford is going to opt for that durable exoskeleton style that Tesla has, not to mention supercharging network, and the type of people that are comfortable getting a Cybertruck with its futuristic interior type thing is probably going to be a very different demographic from the people that are in the market for an electric F-150, which I'm sure is going to have Ford's latest generation software on the inside, and even the prototype has side view mirrors, so it's already like closer to a production model than the Cybertruck is at this point. But I'm very curious to see how much they borrow from the interior of the Mustang Mach-E, which I was interested in checking out. If they alter the software a bit or alter the internal displays a little bit, I hope they do, because I wasn't as big a fan of the Mach-E interior with the dial and the portrait mode screen. I'm more about landscape and not having little dials and stuff on the screen. If you want to have it separately, that's fine, but let your dynamic user interface be dynamic. You don't need it to be dynamic and physical. But the specs on this thing are, of course, what everybody has their eyes on, and I'm for sure going to be watching it when it gets unveiled, and I'm really hoping they can have something that's cost competitive and something that looks like it could be an everyday type pickup truck, not just a luxury segment. And this truck could single-handedly put a lot of different startup companies on their toes if they find out that, hey, there's this Ford pickup now that is coming from an established automaker. It's not a startup company, and it can have great range for a reasonable price. And honestly, with the Mustang Mach-E, it proved to me that Ford is kind of comfortable selling electric vehicles that probably aren't super profitable. While the energy efficiency of the Mach-E is not very good, the pricing of it for the range you get was actually not terrible. You know, it's not Tesla level of good, but it is pretty reasonable, and the Mach-E seems to be pretty popular, especially in the Bay Area. I've been seeing a lot of them, and I found the exterior of that design pretty tempting, and I could see why a lot of people would opt for it. So knowing how competitive Ford can be in this demographic, how they handle the F-150 Lightning is going to impact the rest of the EV pickup truck market for good or for bad. If this ends up sucking, then maybe all these other EV brands are going to have quite the fighting chance. But I'm curious what you guys think the F-150 Lightning is going to be like. What's your estimated guess on pricing and range? My personal guess is that for $50,000, they're going to have a sub 300 mile range option, and if you're willing to spend around $60,000, you'll be able to get a 350 mile range. Hopefully they also decide to go in the north of 400 mile range department, but how they price that, I have a difficult time seeing them undercutting the Cybertruck, though ultimately I think it's going to be that brand recognition and that brand loyalty that's going to have a lot of eyes on this pickup, and the fact that it's coming from an established pickup truck manufacturer is going to win a lot of credit points to this pickup over other EVs in the industry. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.